Welcome back to Behind the Reel. Today we have a very special guest with us. You may know her from College Boyfriend. She's a writer, director, and producer. Welcome, Tina Shakiyah.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today. The purpose of Behind the Reel, we love talking to creatives of color who work behind the scenes just to make sure, one, there's representation and exposure in the industry. For anyone who's watching this, they know that it is possible to work in this industry if you are a person of color. So
Yes, ma'am. Amen. I love it.
Yes. So just want to get right into the interview. College Boyfriends, one of my favorite web series. Actually, it was the first web series I was actually introduced to. I didn't know web series what it was, first of all. This was like back in 2013, 2014. I just graduated from college and I was on a study abroad. And a friend of mine was like, you need to check this out. I'm like, girl, what are you watching? Like, she was just so into it. And that's how I got onto College Boyfriend. So I would love to just start there and talk about your inspiration behind creating the series.
Man, I tell this story so often, and it's like it gives me nostalgic now because it's so many years ago now. But it was random, honestly. The start of College Boyfriends, me and my team, we didn't really started thinking that it was going to be as big as it is now. We had to do a college end of the year project for one of our producing classes, and literally it was just to create a reality series for an episode of TV. But I've always just been that overachiever in all of my film classes. So when I got my group, I was like, we not doing an episode, we doing a whole season, you know? So me and my best friend Dante, we were sitting in the lab one day and we were just trying to like throw around ideas for a reality show. Like, what could we do? So we were thinking about, College Girlfriends, because at that time it was Basketball Wives. It was all these reality shows out. And so we were like, yeah, let's do College Girlfriends. And something I think it was just because a majority of my friends are guys. So when I looked around, I was just like, let's do College Boyfriends. Ain't nobody got a reality show that talks about the guys yet. And honestly, I still to this day, I feel like I had my show before Kevin Hart did the Little Hollywood series.
You did.
I did. You know me, I was mad when that came out. But it was just a real random thing, and we wanted the season and the episodes to be real spoof like. So it was real guerrilla style, it was real over dramatic, and then after us dropping the trailer, and this was back in 2013, so 500 views to me was like everything, So when I got that 1,000 views on just the trailer, I was like, oh, I really want to watch this. So come on, let's try the episode. So it just came out of, honestly, it just came out of pure education and fun stuff. I went to class one day. I was like, hey, you King Hines, I need y'all for a project. And I'm like, okay, cool. So it became that family thing. Now us growing it so big to be in 3 seasons and now a movie, that came with just like our fans becoming obsessed with the season 1, then us seeing that this could really be something after the season 1, and then we did auditions for season 2 and just seeing how many people actually came out just to audition for season 2, and I was like, oh, I can't stop this, you know what I mean? So it just became a very high demanded thing, and we just rolled with it. So I'm actually happy that we did that.
I'm happy that you all did that too. It's so funny to hear that it just came out of a class. I would have never guessed that. Yeah. And the funny thing is, when I first saw the concept and watched the first episode, I was like, oh, because everybody it was all about the women. Like you said, that was like the height of reality TV with the Basketball Wives, Real Housewives, and all of the drama. But we didn't really have a show that was coming from the angle of like how the dudes were feeling.
Right.
And so
to this day, the reality shows out today are still the same.
I agree 1,000%. And it's so interesting too, because y'all were talking about some heavy stuff. Like there was the comedic aspect because everybody, was still in college, but it was like very heavy topics that y'all were talking about. So how did that come about? Was it based on personal experiences or?
It was a mix of both. You know, I tell my friends all the time, like a lot of the characters and the situations that are in this show stemmed from part of me, you know, maybe something that I went through personally throughout my years in college, or just something that I witnessed from other peers, you know. And just putting the topics that we touched on really came in more heavy in season 2 and season 3. And that was because once we started to go that route, I don't know if you watched all 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how the shift in even how we told the stories switched per season.
Yeah.
I mean, so once we took that switch for season 2 and season 3, it was like, okay, it's becoming more cinematic. It's becoming more based in story. Like I want to start telling a story that's not just, you know, bullshit. That's not just for the laughs. So we, in our pre-production meeting for season 2, you know, we just started jotting down like topics that we as college students, especially at HBCUs, that we actually go through, you know, and that came up with the whole drug abuse, that came up with the pregnancy stuff, that came up with the STDs and the all that stuff that I forgot everything that we talked about, but just real life situations. And the more that I realized that my fans and just people around us were actually relating to those situations and really appreciating at most, you know, us touching on those topics in that way, it made me want to dive into it a little bit deeper, you know what I mean? And they're universal topics that we all go through, you know what I mean? Grief, you know, addiction, all of that, all of those things we touch on, and everybody can have a perspective on it, you know? So,
yeah, that's what made it so powerful, was the relatability aspect. And I'm telling you, like season 3 just was a mind fuck for me. Like, excuse my language, but I was just like, oh my God, Kennedy was probably my favorite because I just resonated with her. Everybody loves Kennedy because everybody has been with an F-boy. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just that relatability aspect of it. And then the very end when she died, like I was just in my room boohooing. And I'm like, this is a web series. Like, why are you crying like this?
You know,
like,
it's so funny because when we were crafting season 3, we were like, somebody gotta die. Like, it was so weird when we said it, but we were like, somebody gotta die. And we kept looking around like, well, who is it? So we went down a list, like, who can we kill off? That's not just gonna be a kill off, just a kill off, but like, that's actually gonna move the story. And when we decided on Kennedy, we were like, dang, Courtney, who plays Kennedy, is gonna be mad. Like, damn. But when I told her, she was like, I get to die. She was so excited. It was just like, oh. She was like, no, I'm mad that I might get killed off, but I feel it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. And what stood it for me too is the song that y'all are playing Gone Too Soon is a friend of mine, Caleb Mincer. Yeah. So when I heard that song, I text him immediately. I'm like, oh my God, your song is on College Boyfriends. So it was that piece of it too. I'm like, it hit home.
Yeah, I tried to and that's just another thing with the whole series itself. Like, we try to collaborate at best with other creatives in every facet, you know what I mean? So we tried, we didn't succeed all the way with just like using independent artists for music, but as much as I could, you know, I was pulling people's music. So that was just another way to push other Black artists, you know what I mean? Just give me all your music, pull it in there, any type of fashion that we can do that's independent, that's Black people. Like, we were just really about that. And that's still to this day, we try to promote everybody's art.
So I want to talk about the HBCU aspect, because I know you went to Clark Atlanta and a lot of it was filmed at Clark Atlanta, and then was it Georgia State?
Georgia State, yeah.
Georgia State. So going to a HBCU, I always wanted to go. I ended up going to a PWI, but did that play any part in the stories that you wanted to tell, and like just your inspiration of being a filmmaker in general?
Yeah, definitely. When I first went to Clark Atlanta, I knew I wanted to be in entertainment, but I didn't know in which medium that I wanted to do. At first, I was going to go straight to theater, but then I said, you know, I want to tell stories in a different way, and back then I was like, I already know how to act. Like, I can do that. You know what I'm saying? So going to HBCU, I got culture shocked like a mug, because I'm from San Francisco, California. So, you know, I came from living very diverse in a class full of Asians and Hispanics and all these other people, to being dropped off where all I'm seeing is Black people, which was beautiful, but at the same time, it was like an overload for me, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So after I got into it and I started to see that even though all of us are like Black, it's still so very diverse. And there's so many different stories and so many different lives just walking around my one campus. And then you have 3 campuses in the AUC. So it's like so many different people from around the world just in my face every day. So definitely I'm very, very passionate about telling Black stories, which I want to phrase that right, because Black stories aren't just Black stories. You know, Black stories are universal stories. Black stories are every story that you can think of. You know what I mean? It's not just a Black story, but I want to tell those stories with putting us in the forefront because we've been in the background for so long. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So going to Clark, it pushed me on that tip, and then just, I don't know, is there something about Black people that get you pumped up? You know what I mean? To know that you the shit, to know that you can do something. You know what I mean? So I had professors that were like parents in a sense to me, that pushed me, that just motivated me to just go out and do stuff. You know, in class, we didn't technically have the curriculum to learn everything that you need to do, you know, what we did. But because I was that motivated and that dedicated, I was always just kind of teaching myself, you know what I mean? And that stemmed from that hustle and that grind mentality. I think that HBCUs installs in their students, you know what I mean? Just find a way to make one. We didn't have equipment that we could just go rent out, or we didn't have the money, but we gonna find a way to make one. And, you know, and to this day, like we say it all the time, like shit, but even for life, like I'm gonna just find a way, you know? So I definitely appreciate going to HBCU for that. And just everything about just seeing the culture, you know, just especially not coming from that type of environment where the culture is put in your face 24/7, you know? So even going back down memory lane, I can go on forever, but I don't want to keep talking because, you know, your interview gotta be short. But
no, you're fine. That's why we're having these conversations. I can relate. I'm an Army brat, so I've bounced around summer everywhere. And when I've been to 2 high schools, where I was living in North Carolina at first, and then my dad moved us to Kentucky. And that was a culture shock because, one, I'm like, Kentucky, really? Like, one, do Black people live? I know it sounds so stupid, but literally I was like, Black people really live in Kentucky, number one. And 2, you know, at that point he had retired from the military. So this was a job move, and we went to Louisville, and I went to the high school Muhammad Ali went to. And so that was my first time at a predominantly Black 98% high school that's surrounded by Section 8 housing in the inner city. And it was beautiful. I wouldn't trade that for any experience in the world. But it was a culture shock at first. Especially being the only Black person. Used to being the only Black person in my classes.
Exactly.
To now, there may be one white person in my class. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw an Asian person in Atlanta, I called my mom like, Mom, I'm on the bus with an Asian. Because I hadn't seen none. It was just so weird. Like, wow.
So with that, I know you talked about how the series came about from a class, but in terms of like making films, you know, usually you have to work with some type of budget. So have you had any experience with having no budget and still trying to get films done or getting projects done? And right. And what kind of advice do you have for other filmmakers out there working with no budget or very low budget?
Yeah, so I mean, we started the show without a budget. We're kind of continuing the show without a budget in a sense. I'm working on a film right now for College Boyfriends, and we're trying to, you know, we've learned throughout the years on how to actually go about getting funding and everything like that. But I will say we made heat without a budget, you know, back in the day, and it's still possible today. It all it takes is just using your resources. What's funny is actually I have a few friends that called me this week actually, and we just, you know, started talking, and they're like, you know, Tina, you don't have a camera, you've never owned a camera, but you've produced so much and you have so much content. Like, how is this possible? It's because I use my resources. You know what I mean? It's about people that you know and collaborating and seeing where you can cut corners and where you can pull from. And I think that would be the most advice I would give to people, is just go out and learn how to, you know, take and give. You know, you got people out here in the streets that are solely videographers. You got people that's out here that strictly want to do producing, that knows how to, you know, find what you need for you. So it's all about just talking to people about what you need and seeing what you can give to them in order to get what you need back. It's a collaborative film or collaborative field, you know. And I actually had to learn that because I mean, I wear so many hats, and before I think I had this mentality where it was like, I gotta do it myself. And it was kind of enabling me from getting stuff where I wanted it to be, you know? So once I learned that, hey, Dante, you can produce, you know, Britt, you can do the wardrobe, and I don't have to worry about that, but we can make something just as great, even if I did do it all myself. You know what I mean? I think learning that everybody needs to have their own hand in the creative pot just makes films, television, whatever type of artistic vibe you go on that much better.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I think that's one thing I learned. I moved to LA last year. I'm back in Tennessee now. When COVID hit, I came back home. But when you're working on these productions or on set, there's a million people and everybody has a specific function. Right. And you learn to teach yourself that, oh, it's a reason why this person does this one thing. Right. Because it's like an assembly line, you know? So it's difficult when you have to wear a lot of hats. And when you're starting off, you have to, like, I was able to shoot 2 short films before I had to come back home. The first one, no budget. Like I was everybody except the DP and the boom operator. It was a struggle. But by the time I shot the second film, I had a script soup, I had a producer, I had a full team, thankfully. And it was like night and day. Exactly. Just like how everything ran smoothly.
I think it's good for young filmmakers or new filmmakers to go through that struggle of wearing those hats, because one, it teaches you every aspect and every part of the process, depending on where you actually, you know, where you actually want to be in the industry. Like, you still kind of have to know where you fit in and where and how each part functions. So being able to do that on your own is a good tool to have. But like you said, once you get a taste of realizing everybody has a dramatic function in the story, then you would never want to go back. You know, when I moved to LA, is when I actually started getting more work in the field, on actual like big name productions and everything. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm seeing things from a different perspective. So when I got back to Atlanta, we started production on the movie. I was running different, I was operating different, and everybody was like, what? And I'm just like, yo, I know I've got a taste of how it's supposed to work now. So this is what we're doing, and boom, boom, bam. So like, people know now, just when I come, I'm coming like this, you know, because it's gonna be better in the end when everybody is on their P's and Q's in their specific department, and they're gonna see like, wow, no wonder, like you said, no wonder I was doing that. Yeah, because if one person, then you really realize how important that little piece was when you don't have it.
Exactly.
You know? So like, now I'll be telling people, like, you know, when you PA, yeah, PAing is a pain in the ass, you know, but at the same time, imagine if you didn't have that, the production would be like, it's going to drop a little bit, because that's a vital part of keeping everything balanced, and go on and so on for each and every other part of production. But it's definitely good to just struggle a little bit, just so you can have a taste of what it is, and then appreciate it when you don't have to.
And sometimes when you you know, the beginning struggle is the best too, because then you can look back and say, oh, this is where I came from. And you're able to learn. But I think too, it's more about building your confidence. Like when I shot my first, I don't even know if you want to call it a web series. It was really like a scene. I wrote 8 pages. I was in Memphis, and I'm like, I just need to get something out. I shot it on my Android. The sound was so bad. But God bless my friends who were like down to act. It was just like a 2-person scene. So now that I know what I'm doing a little bit more, I'm going to go back and reshoot it and actually make it a full web series. But I needed to do that and just put it out. It's up on YouTube. And I'm just like, this is where I came from. It's a nice little time capsule.
Mm-hmm. We say it
So
all the time. Every time we look at season 1 of College Boy Films, we be like, oh,
you cringe a little. I cringe. Yeah.
like, yeah. So definitely seeing that progress is very inspiring to yourself too. You know.
Did you always know that you wanted to be in this industry? Did you have exposure to anyone, specifically anyone of color that worked in the industry?
Um, yeah, like I said, I always knew I wanted to be in entertainment, but I think I grew up, and still to this day, like I do so much in it that it just goes like a little wave. You know, like one day I want to sing, one day I want to act, one day I want to produce. You know, I didn't know I wanted to actually like do films until my brother was he was in a art school back in high school when he was in high school, and he had to do a film for one of his class. So he was filming and editing back in the day, and he put me acting in a movie for one of his class projects, and I just kind of leaned into it a little bit more. So then that's when I kind of started writing. I used to write movies without knowing they were movies all the time. Right, kind of like writing little stories and writing plays in a notebook. And then when I was maybe 13 maybe, I started going to this youth work program, and I got assigned to be pretty much like a producer for the video department to like do like little videos around the city about cleaning up the neighborhood, stuff like that, you know. Um, and yeah, and then just back then, like I just loved the fact that I could combine all different type of art within this one medium of entertainment. So if you wanted to do music, you could find that and find it in film. If you wanted to act, you could find it in film. If you wanted to do painting or art design, you could find it in film. All of this is just compromised. I mean, compliment. I'm talking too fast. It's all put in this one portion of art. So I was just like, hey, let me go ahead and jump on that. When I first went to Clark, I wrote a film, and I just hopped in a campus movie fest. I don't know if they still do that, but it was a really good program where they give you the equipment, and then you get 5 days or whatever to film a short. So I did that, and that was my first time actually really saying, "Oh, I really want to be a filmmaker." Um, and now, that was the first time I won a prize for it. And, even that film was horrible, but it was my first one, and everybody thought it was great. And I was like, okay, hey, I'm a director, y'all. And yeah, so I give credit to my brother all the time, as far as pushing me to want to do film. My family is kind of already artistically inclined. So I think, like I said, that's what already pushed me in that avenue of wanting to entertain, but definitely being a filmmaker and storyteller, I give it to my brother.
And how is it living and working in this industry in Atlanta? Because a lot of people think you have to be in New York or be in LA.
I'd say like this. One of my friends in LA, who's a producer now, he told me, if you want to be behind the scenes and like, camera ops and all that other things, Atlanta is a good place to be. If you want to be more so in front of the camera, or if you want to be like a writer, if you want to be so and so and so, LA is the place to go. And back when he first told me that, I was like, yeah, that sounds right. You know what I mean? But now being able to say that I've tasted both worlds, you can definitely do that and more out in Atlanta. And I think it's beautiful because Atlanta is predominantly Black. You know what I mean? And it's a different vibe. When I was in LA, I loved LA. I do miss LA. I think it's just the Cali bone in me, maybe, that makes me want to go back. But LA gives you a different taste of the industry. You have everybody from everywhere there who thinks they're somebody, who talks to you and speaks and moves in a different way that may come off a little bit intimidating, maybe even an annoying way. But when you get out here, I felt like it was a little bit more home-like, where I was more comfortable saying, hey, let's collaborate on something. It's more, let's do this together versus what can you do for me in LA. In LA, it's like I would go to networking events, and they were great networking events. I met a lot of people, great creatives, but you found yourself saying, "Oh, well, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?" So much where it was like, "Damn, it's becoming robotic. It's becoming take, take, take." Versus out here, the conversations are so natural. I used to be I used to get very bad anxiety going to networking working events because I'm kind of like a wallflower in a sense. Especially if I go by myself, I'm like, I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to network. I don't know how to start conversations. And that's how I was when I was in LA. The moment I got out here, I went to a networking event by myself, and I was like, I was working the room, and I was just like, you know, because the conversations are so much more natural. They flow better. They don't seem like people are talking to you just because they think they can get something from you. Now, if you are able to collaborate, and if you are able to, you know, put something together with this person, it's because you both see something in the person. You know what I mean? It's because you guys think that something can grow from it, not just because I see a dollar sign or I think I can one up you. Right. So I say that to say, Atlanta, definitely you can get everything done here. I do hate that Atlanta is becoming a spot where people are just coming to get the tax stuff and, you know, shoot here for cheap and then go home. You know, even with casting for film in front of the camera, even with crewing people, you know, so many people. I've worked on production from LA out here where it's like, oh, well, we're bringing this person, bringing this person, where it's just like, you got a whole plethora of people here who are ready to work, but you guys aren't, you're just using a space and not using them. You know what I mean? I hope that kind of starts to change a little bit better. But as far as just like the independent route and all that, everything, it's possible here. It's definitely growing, and I'm happy that I can contribute to that.
Yeah. And that goes into the deeper conversation of, you know, representation. And I hope that does change, that they will start utilizing all the talent that is homegrown in Atlanta versus, you know, bringing people from LA and staffing people from LA in Atlanta on these productions. And I think that goes across the board. I live in Nashville. Nashville is another place that like thinks they're LA. We are not LA, not even LA adjacent. But these prices, it's like a country town wanting to be LA so bad.
And let me get in there. I've seen an apartment complex that used to be very, very, very affordable, just like not crazy. And I said, what do y'all think we are?
Yeah.
Like doing too much.
It's because all the transplants, you know, all the people that are moving to LA and all the music people that are moving to Nashville. And I do agree with you as far as like, there's something about the South that just feels more home, like you said, more comfortable. Like I feel like the connections are a little easier to make. I'm very introverted, and I get a lot of anxiety when I go to huge networking events as well, because it's like, it's overwhelming because you know the who's who in the room, but you're trying to, I'm in my head, maybe that's just a Virgo thing, but I'm like trying not to come off desperate, trying not to come off too aggressive.
Right.
And it's too much. I much rather like move around in smaller networking circles. And the funny thing is, like, even those networking circles that I made in LA came from Facebook groups. And those are the people that I still collaborate with. And most of us are not even from LA.
Right.
So that's usually how it works. So what are you working on now? I know you mentioned the College Boyfriends movie. Any new projects we could be on the lookout for?
You know, I have a whole list of projects that I have for this year. I had planned on starting last year until COVID happened and slapped me in the face. But we have definitely It's Something About Life, which is the College Boyfriends movie, which is going to be kind of like a 2.5 part, because we got the feature film that we're producing, and then we also have the YouTube series that we're going to be putting out, plus like a little social media IG part of it. So it's going to be kind of like a full circle for that. So that's, to me, like 3 productions in one. I have a new series that's in development that's untitled right now, but I'm never going to speak on that. But that's something coming up. And then I'm working on a feature film called Flip, which is kind of like a memoir for me, but it touches on the struggle of Crohn's disease and just going out and chasing your dreams and changing your life path due to circumstances that are uncontrolled. So I'm excited about that one, honestly. Since it is a personal story for me, it touches home, but I also think it's going to touch a lot of people. So I'm actually very excited for that one.
Yeah, well, we're excited too. So again, I just want to thank you so much for taking your time to talk with us today. We'll definitely make sure that we put some links to you in our description box. And if you have not watched College Boyfriends, for anyone who's watching this, it is still up on YouTube. I don't know what you're doing with your life. We're quarantined. You don't have an excuse.
Okay, go ahead and binge that. Binge all 3 seasons.
Yes, watch all 3 seasons. You're going to need a tissue box and some tequila for season 3.
So funny. Last thing, we were just talking about the movie, and I can't tell you, exactly what happened to the movie, but we were just talking, and I'm just looking like, dang, like my fans are either going to love me or they're going to hate me with this movie. So that's kind of exciting too at the same time.
I can't wait. I'm going to be on the lookout for it. I cannot wait. It's going to be all over my social media when it comes out.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the support. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys liked what you saw here, definitely make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Come on back for the next interview, and we'll see you next time.